Obviously, you don't do it alone, you have a band with you. I want to quickly mention the Dirty Aces because I believe in 2015 you released an album with the Dirty Aces.
Yeah, we had a couple of. It was like a punk garage blues album,
Right.
and it went down incredibly well. It had some great reviews, but we had a couple of unforeseen issues there, which led to the recording of this album. And suddenly, this album's really sort of taking off. You know, it's fantastic.
When did this album kind of start to take shape?
Well, we had, due to some family issues, a member of the band couldn't make a big festival that we were booked for.
Right.
And I either had to cancel the show or do so, because it was very last minute. So I had to either cancel the show or try and get some new musicians together and do something different. And I thought, I just want to play some blues. You know, I would love, this was a big festival in the UK, 1,800 people in the audience. I thought, let's see how it goes down. I'd love to play some blues. So I thought about a drummer I'd worked with, Darren Crome, who was awesome, and we'd recorded some instrumentals together of blues tracks. And then he recommended Jeff Walker on bass, who's played with a lot of the legends and a lot of the top UK artists. And then I also thought of Andy on guitar, because I played with him once before, and was really impressed. And suddenly it came together, and the whole thing magically really worked. You know, I mean, it sort of works as a unit.
Right.
And I think you can hear that on the record. And once we did the Skegness gig, we thought, right, let's go into the studio. So we went into the studio 2 weeks later, recorded the album in an afternoon, you know, and just went in there and captured a live vibe. And I think that comes across on the record.
Sure. Did you have all the songs ready, or was it more of an...
Yeah, we had them all ready. Because we basically recorded the set we did at Skegness, you know, at this festival. And it just magically happened in the studio. You know, it suddenly, we did 1 or 2 takes of each track, and it just worked, and got a vibe. And then we released one of the tracks, and it got an amazing feedback. And then we did the set in Ridderkerk. We came over to Holland. We were booked as the Dirty Aces, but we came over with this band, did the gig, and it went down amazingly well. And then V2 were interested in releasing it. So it's just it's built really naturally and organically, which is a good sign, you know, for an album.
Sure. And well, you mentioned Little Walter, so the final track, Walter's Shade of Blue.
That's right, yeah.
Where did that song come from?
Well, years ago I used to do a slow blues like that, and I just really wanted to get that big toned harmonica sound on record, you know. So we based it on his slow blues, and it was done in one take. That was the first take. We tried another take, but then listened back to it and thought, well, that's it, you know. So that was only the second time we played it live, and it just really worked. And of course, because I listened to Little Walter religiously, I just think it sort of came together really quickly. I mean, it's not a. I think one critic said that, you know, it pays tribute to Little Walter, but there's also a bit of Giles Robson in there as well. So I'm not being too religious. I'm doing a couple of things that Little Walter wouldn't have done, but that's, you know, to make sure it doesn't sound too boring. You know, it's just got my own stamp on it as well, which I think Little Walter would have appreciated back in the day, you know. And
it's interesting what you say, because do you need that rawness for an album like this? The 1 or 2 takes, is that important for an album?
Well, it is. I mean, a lot of people have been surprised about that, but it's not unprecedented. I mean, if you listen to Chess records, everything was done in 1 or 2 takes. It was done completely live. They leave the mistakes in, and it captures a performance, you know, that can be different each time. If you listen to the alternate takes, they can be completely different, you know. And also jazz musicians, jazz work the same way. They'd only take a day to record an album, because it's recording a live act, and you don't overdub or anything. So it captures a real sort of seat of the pants tension, and excitement, you know. So it's nice and raw. And I mean, someone like Jimmy Smith, the great Hammond organ player, he recorded Back at the Chicken Shack, a Midnight Special, in a day. He recorded 2 albums in a day, and they're 2 of his finest, most famous albums. So it's trying to get that feeling across. I don't think we'd have gained anything by multi-tracking and you know, and layering the album at all. I think it might have lost something, you know.
And what you mentioned, kind of how the album came together and how V2 got interested. It's interesting these days, because on the one hand there are some blues is there in pop in some artists, Joe Bonamassa, in Gary Clark Jr., those kind of things. But where do you think blues is now in
I
the
think,
musical
I mean, blues has survived. It's a you know, people, you know, it's always survived. It's always been there. There's always a blues scene, and a lot of stuff like indie and stuff has had its ups and downs.
Right.
But blues survives without any mainstream attention. You know, there's festivals across Holland, there's festivals across the UK, across Europe, across the world, because the great thing about blues is that the older that you get, the more miles that you've done, it sounds better. So you've got a long career ahead of you. No one judges you on your age. It's all about the music, and it's an accessible music. It's a humble, accessible music. So you play it live, people get it instantly. They don't need to have heard it on the radio or heard the album. It's a very live music. So I feel incredibly blessed to have stuck with it, and very proud to have stuck with it, because it never lets you down. You know, it's fantastic.
Well, that's interesting what you say, because were there moments where you thought, because maybe your jazz influence, that you thought maybe I should go make a little bit more
funnily
jazz?
enough, we did try. I've tried some jazz instrument, you know, trying to get jazz on the harmonica, but jazz is an interesting music, and for me, blues has got something more powerful than jazz, in that it talks to everybody. You know, no matter how intelligent or no matter what you do, it talks to people, because it contains the facts of life. And as you get older, you go through more of these situations yourself. You know, so the lyrics start to make even more sense. It's kind of miraculous, because this music was made by people that hadn't the benefit of great educations or very sort of prosperous backgrounds, and were marginalised in society. And yet, in their, you know, when blues is at its best, it really concisely, you know, describes relationship situations, life situations, and it makes you feel better. You know, they say blues is chicken soup for the soul, so it makes you feel better too. So it's something that you just keep coming back to, because it's so good. And no matter what, you know, if you go and try other stuff, but you never really get that feeling, you know, through other stuff, as you do with that basic, really sort of raw and primal blues.
In that sense, is that how the songwriting works for you as well? That you do put personal stories and personal things?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I just what I try and do is think about personal situations, and they sort of go through the prism of blues.
Sure.
You know, lyrics and images and stuff.
Right.
And you know, the blues tradition is like a folk tradition. So you borrow bits and pieces. You know, everyone borrows phrases and stuff from other people's songs. So you do that, and it sort of fits in with that tradition. You know, so it's cool.
Last question for those who need the blues. When did this title pop up?
Well, you know what I did. I was going around a lot of festivals in the UK and talking to a lot of festival goers in the UK, and what sort of happened over there in the wake of artists like Joe Bonamassa is all the young bands that are coming through are really rocky. You know, it's like this rock blues thing.
Right.
And everyone was saying, we want to, you know, if you go to a steakhouse, you want to eat a steak. You know, you don't want, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, you want to eat Chinese food. But a lot of people are going to blues festivals and not getting blues. You know, it's this sort of rock crossover thing, because everyone's trying to be bigger than the scene. And yet, really, I don't know whether they ever will be. And I thought, well, you know, this album is blues. So if you want the blues, here it is. It's undiluted. You know, it's nothing but the blues. You know, it's straight down the line blues. No gimmicks, no sort of stylistic gimmick. It's just pure blues. So that's where the title came from.
And you've played a lot of shows, and like you mentioned here, and then do you see a lot of young people?
Yeah, well, I think that it's definitely got an older market. But we play in the UK. We play some very young clubs. People love it.
Right.
You know, they don't get to act. You know, they wouldn't track it down. The majority of them wouldn't know about it because it doesn't get played on mainstream radio. But when they hear it live, because of the rhythm, it's instant. You know,
Sure.
and we have people. I mean, there's a lot of young people in Eindhoven on Friday night, and the place just erupted, because when you're playing something like that, you know, with such a great band, you know, the band's like it's a Rolls-Royce band, you know. So when you play something like that with such a great band, and it's so simple and direct, it really cuts through, you know. And yeah, we get a fair. There's a lot more younger people come to the Euro festivals than the UK festivals. So it's good to see that it's it should carry on a bit.
Okay. Giles, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.